It's one thing to report on what's happening in the courtrooms and the courthouses around the country as part of the resistance against Donald Trump and his administration. That's one thing. But our audience, our fervent audience that vibrates on our frequency here on Legal AF, they're looking for things to do to oppose besides just voting at the midterms. I can't think of anybody better to address that issue than Skye Perryman. Skye is the founder and president of Democracy Forward, an organization that has brought more than 70 lawsuits against this administration just in the last 200 days, with a lot more to come. She joined me for an interview about a brand new case just filed in Texas. But at the same time, she talked about Democracy 2025. You heard of Project 2025? Well, this is the antidote. Democracy 2025, about 500 public interest groups all nestled within there, and all providing ways for our audience, lawyer and non-lawyer both, to work to protect our Constitution, to be the foot soldiers for our Constitution and our democracy. And here's a clip from my interview with Skye Perryman. You're going to, I think, agree with my prediction. It's a sad prediction, but one I had to make nonetheless at the end of November, that if the first Trump administration was going to have 1,000 lawsuits filed against it, with an 80 or 85% winning percentage for those that oppose the Trump administration. This administration, now with his drunk with power and encouraged by the immunity decision, I said it was going to be close to 4,000 lawsuits before that administration was all said and done. What do you think about that?
I think that's a good prediction. I mean, look, we have over 300 that have been filed in the last 150 days. The courts have, and by the way, judges, appointed by Republicans, judges appointed by Democrats, judges appointed by President Trump himself, judges across the board are ruling against the administration because they're operating so lawlessly. We've already seen over 180 orders that have had to stop or slow what the administration's doing. So I think you're going to see it. And again, this is because the major lever of power that the American people have right now is the ability in this country that has not yet been taken away from us to initiate litigation against our government in defense of rights that everyone in this country enjoys. And so, we're going to make sure that people can use that lever in all the ways that they need to in this time.
Let me ask you a kind of a professional question, litigator to litigator, trial lawyer to trial lawyer. How despondent or how does it impact your strategy at all to know that at the trial court level and even at the first appellate court level in federal court, you're getting great success, right? Your 90% success rate, even 72%, as you said or mentioned, related to Trump appointed judges at the appellate court level, yes. But at the United States Supreme Court, with Donald Trump exploiting their emergence, complicitly with the Supreme Court, MAGA right, are exploiting the emergency petition shadow docket method in order to stampede them into the decisions that they want. And now he's, I don't know if it's 8-4 in his favor, but it's some number where he's now winning more than he's losing at the United States Supreme Court. How does that impact what you're doing at the lower level of the federal courts and appellate courts?
Well, the first thing is we are not going to let anybody, whether that is a perception of what the Supreme Court's doing, whether it's what the administration's doing, whether it's what Elon Musk is tweeting, whether it's what Stephen Miller has decided, whatever. We're not letting anybody deprive the American people of their ability to go into court and to defend their rights. And the district court judges and the appellate court judges are right there with us. And that is the number one thing. And there are a lot of these cases that are not going up. They're taking way too many of them up on this emergency basis, really abusing that. That's going to create a docket issue for the Supreme Court that of course the dissenting justices continue to raise. It raises a lot of questions for people and communities across this country about what this court is doing. But we, number one, are not going to let that deter what we can do. Number two, as disappointing as some of these decisions by the Supreme Court, by the way, not just to make a decision on an emergency docket, because people understand emergencies happen. They're not all the emergencies the Trump administration is trying to create, but that happens. But the majority refuses to explain its reasoning. right? And courts get to exist in a democracy because they're defending democratic institutions or defending people that get left out. And there's a process, and people, even if they don't agree with what's happening, get to read that we don't have kings and queens, get to read what the court is thinking. And so it's really delegitimizing this court's credibility with the American people, which, by the way, is at an all-time low and has been for some time since Donald Trump shaped it. But it's delegitimizing credibility to not have that reasoning out there for the American public.
Well, as an example, we just got the DVD case out of the United States Supreme Court. And as I said in a hot take, it turned due process and Fifth Amendment rights upside down in America in a one paragraph
that doesn't even have reasoning.
Doesn't have reasoning, in which they blocked the injunction, which led Sotomayor in her eloquent 14-page dissent to say and call it out. This is an abuse of power and equitable authority by the brethren here at the United States Supreme Court, right?
Absolutely. I agree. But that example actually also shows an answer to your prior question about how we look at this at the district court level. Because what happened after the court did that is the judge in Boston had other legal theories before him that the court had not had occasion to stay or block. And so he started using the powers that the district courts rightfully have to issue relief based on that. So what we want people to understand is that this is a hard fight, and nobody's getting out of this moment of history keeping their head down, and nobody's getting out of it with there's no easy breezy thing. And going to the courts, this is a hard path, but it's something that we need people to do. And we know that it's getting under the administration's skin. That's why they're intimidating lawyers. It's why they're intimidating judges. And we have to keep going and keep doing it. The other thing I will say, is that the Supreme Court has not rubber stamped everything that the administration has wanted. Now, I'm not defending some of these most recent unreasoned, just sort of emergency shadow docket decisions. That should concern every single American. But the court itself has had to step in to stop the administration. A few examples, including, by the way, in our JGG case, which is the Venezuelan removal case. And that is something that a lot of people did not predict, that the court would fall out of line in some instances with what the administration's doing. So we're going to continue to bring cases and insist on justice and including at the Supreme Court.
Let me, and if you can't answer this, I totally understand it. Let me throw something at you. Let me give a name. Erez Ravini just has a whistleblower 28-page letter he sent up to the Senate Judiciary Committee about Emil Bove and about what he was instructed to do at a March 14th meeting, in which he was told by Emil Bove, point blank, to lie to federal judges, to not comply with their orders, and tell them to go F off, including the judge. The judges are involved in some of your cases, right? Are you guys evaluating what to do next with this whistleblower?
Well, look, we've certainly seen those reports, and really those reports show what Judge Boasberg and other judges had already been able, I think. I mean, they didn't have exactly the details of those reports, but it's been very clear in those cases that this administration did not want to follow court orders, tried to undermine court orders and their compliance. You have a number of judges that have already found that probable cause exists for the government's contempt. And so, of course, the facts develop every day. But this is a concerning thing. And it's something that, and I think your listeners and viewers understand and appreciate this, but the entire academic discussion about what happens if Donald Trump ignores a Supreme Court order really presupposes in some way this major issue that protects the American people every single day, which is the expectation that we know, by the way, over 80% of the people have, that people in this country follow court orders, including the president. And that's district court orders too. You don't just get to go say, well, I don't like what a district court said, so I'm going to continue my unlawful course of conduct. You appeal. If you need to appeal, you can make public statements if you want to make public statements, but you don't get to ignore those orders. And so we at Democracy Forward are spending a lot of our time and resources on making sure that we're ensuring compliance with orders in the cases that we're litigating, that when we get a court order, that our clients are able to get relief. And a lot of lawyers are doing that that too. And we want to make sure folks know that, we're going to fight every single day, not just to win the court orders, but also to ensure compliance with them.
I'm sure our audience has a sigh of relief in hearing you talk about how the cases that we talk about here on Legal AF are actually being handled and approached, and the strategy and the tactics that are being used. Why don't we end the hot take talking about Democracy 2025 and a call to action for our audience about what they can do, because we all kind of vibrate on the same frequency here. But they're always looking for, and we have our own recommendations, but you have an amazing organization that's an umbrella group for 500 or so public interest groups that are looking for people to volunteer and to help, and they don't have to be lawyers to do it. You want to talk about that?
Absolutely. So here's a few things. So Democracy 2025, it has its own website, democracy2025.org, is really the group we put together to make sure that the lawyers were helping each other with cases, that the American people were covered, that if something unlawful happened, there would be a lawsuit filed. And it's really a great supportive community. So one thing to do is to go to democracy2025.org and sign up to get updates, to be informed. You can also note in those signups whether you'd like to volunteer. So that's one thing. And there are a number of lawyers that are volunteering right now through a program called the Federal Worker Legal Defense Network, which we are happy to have been part of standing up, which is helping our civil servants get access to lawyers. And you can sign up and let us know you're interested in that. And then there will be a number of other volunteer opportunities. But it's not just the lawyers that matter right now. The number one tool that autocratic actors use in order to backslide democracy and impose sort of a rule that is not by the people is to convince people that they don't have power, to convince people that they're alone, and to put people in a position where they lose hope. And so at Democracy Forward, we launched a program after the first 100 days of the administration, after listening to people across the country, called Dinners for Democracy, and then we have Coffee for Change. And it's really just a program to encourage people to come together with their communities. If what you need to do is have a supportive conversation, have that conversation. If what you want to do is take on an issue and take action at the national level, we can help you do that. In many instances, there are issues at the local level that need a lot of attention. So you can go to democracyforward.org/dinners and learn more about that program. And it's really something within a few days of launching it, before there was any publicity or anything, we already had people in all 50 states, hundreds of dinners being planned. This combined with, of course, the work people are doing to show up to the No Kings marches and be part of mobilizing in their community. We are seeing it make a difference every single day. And so we really would invite all of your listeners and viewers to join us in it.
Welcome back. We try to make this one-stop shopping for all things at the intersection of law and politics. We got to talk truth to each other before we can talk truth to power. And I can't think of anybody better to talk truth with than somebody who's on the front lines, in the trenches, leading the charge against the Trump administration, like Skye, Perryman, and Democracy Forward. If you like this kind of content, hit the subscribe button. That's the number one way you can tell us you like what's happening here on Legal AF, and help us continue to build this pro-democracy channel in collaboration with the Midas Touch Network. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.